I do. I would say if you're sitting at home right now and you're thinking about joining the National Guard and you're thinking about becoming an Army Ranger, this is the place to do it. It's the only place you can go straight from basic training and go through a Ranger pipeline. So if you have that as a dream, I'd encourage you to come get it.
Welcome back to Leaders Recon. Today we're with Captain Neville to talk about the Ranger Team Leader Initiative. We're the company commander. Sir, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
So, first of all, can you just tell us a little bit what is the Ranger Training Team Leader Initiative?
Sure. So RTLI is a program where we recruit kids right out of OSIT, whether they're infantry or cavalry students, and we give them a direct pipeline to Ranger School. So we'll bring them to RTLI for 28 days. Then they would, if they graduate our program, they'll move on to RTAC, and then if they graduate that, they'll move on to Ranger School. So the unique thing about RTLI is it's really the only direct pipeline to Ranger School right out of basic training. Even the soldiers that come through Ranger Regiment, they got to go to regiment first before they can go to school. Through this pipeline, they're able to go directly to school.
And it's a guard-only program, right?
It is a guard-only program, so the only soldiers that can come through RTLI are guard soldiers.
Wow. So can you break down that 28-day course? Like, what does that look like?
Okay, so we focus on really 5 key events. We focus on land navigation, we focus on RTTs, we focus on combat water survival, and we focus on PT, and we focus on ruck marching. So over those 28 days, we're going to get multiple reps at ruck marching, multiple reps at swimming, and a ton of land navigation, and an awful lot of physical fitness. So you cannot show up to RTLI if you're not physically fit, and then we're just going to ramp that up quite a bit to make sure that they're successful at RTAC, and then hopefully successful at Ranger School down the road.
So you mentioned the physical fitness piece. Are there some like specific requirements that you have for soldiers that are coming out of OSIT into your program?
Yes, there are. So minimum requirements are a sub 13-minute 2-mile and a 500 plus on their ACFT. So those are their minimum qualifications.
500 plus on ACFT and a 13-minute 2-mile.
Yes.
That's pretty quick.
Yeah, it's pretty quick.
So, and that's the only requirements. Like, you find them while they're at OSIT, or how do soldiers either hear about your program or get into your program, or what's that look like?
Okay, so kind of first part of that is the only other requirement would be that their drill sergeant does have to give a recommendation. So somebody may be a physical stud, but if they're not a good teammate, then we don't want them in this program. Yeah. And then what happens is we have another officer here who specifically works on recruiting. So here on Fort Benning, I think there's 58 different OSIT companies, and he'll go out and approach those companies and give a briefing, and we'll see a whole bunch of hands raise up the first time, and then when it comes a little closer to getting to school, then you see less and less hands because people go, oh, it's real now. But that's what happens. We here on Fort Benning, we recruit those kids right at the OSIT level. The day they graduate OSIT, they hop in a bus and they come right here, and then we get it on.
How does that work with the units, right? So like, you know, a soldier's going to be gone for, or is coming back or graduating OSIT at a certain time. Let's say, you know, they volunteer, get into RTLI. What does that look like? Okay,
so each individual state that a soldier is coming from has to approve them coming to this program.
Okay.
So we don't work with the individual unit, we work with the state because the state appropriates those funds for that soldier to be here. But I think this program has been around long enough that states realize the value of having lower enlisted Ranger qualified soldiers in the force, because it just makes training better, it makes standards better, it makes motivation better, and it shows an example for other soldiers in the Guard that, hey, maybe I could go to Ranger School as well.
And then what is that, so what is your class size right now, or typically?
Okay, so right now my class size is 29. I'd say 30 is about the max that we want to have, and that just ebbs and flows throughout the year. The lowest class I've had has been 12 students. So.
And are there different ones going at the same time, or is it, 28 days, start a new course, or how does that work?
It's usually just one course starts, and that course will run its cycle, and then another course will start right after that. Sometimes during the years where their Ranger School is not in session due to Best Ranger or due to holiday block leave, those courses might range to 40 days, but generally speaking, it's a 28-day course.
And then these soldiers are going to Ranger School, or they're going to RTAC, or what? How does that look?
After they graduate our program, if they graduate our program, and we make a recommendation that they go forward, then they will go to RTAC, which is 2 weeks right here on Camp Butler.
Okay.
And then if they graduate that, then in 2 days they'll report to Ranger School.
And the real fun begins.
And then that's when the real fun begins.
And so it sounds like a lot of the training is focused on the events that first during RAP week or in the what is that, Ranger assessment
Phase.
of
Definitely.
Ranger School,
It is.
is you find that if you can get them prepared for that, like, you know, I guess what is the key metrics that you have found been successful for your students or for your soldiers that have graduated RTLI?
Okay,
moving forward?
so I think the current statistics are if you can get through the first week of Ranger School, you have about a 75% chance of graduating school altogether. You may recycle, and then if you can get through Derby phase, that first 3 weeks, then you have about a 90% chance of graduating, even if you recycle. So we have found that if we focus on those key events that happen during the first week of Ranger School, which is land nav, PT, rucking, the water confidence, if we can get soldiers to be super confident and do their push-ups well, do their sit-ups well, go out in the middle of the night and find points in the woods and do a couple other key tasks, that they're going to ultimately be successful and come home with their tab.
So for soldiers that went through RTLI, RTAC, Ranger School, and then, you know, came back as graduates here, I'm guessing you get to see them again at some point.
Of course. Yep.
So, you know, what are some of the things, what's the feedback you've gotten from those who, you know, went on to earn the tab on how RTLI helped prepare them through that?
So one of my favorite things to do is go to Ranger School graduation, and one, because it's just fun, and two, I love to pick up those soldiers that just graduated because the smile on their face is, you know, this wide, and I always invite them back into the classroom, and I have the students who are currently in RTLI kind of sit down and we do a question and answer session. I like those students to kind of give back a little bit, and then they want to go eat like 3 whole pizzas, right? But I always watch this kind of interaction go, because the kids that are sitting in the classroom, they're looking at them and they're just like, wow, I can't believe you just did it. And the question always comes up, like, what did you do? What was successful? And they always say, hey, look, if you just kind of if you listen to the instructors, like, they want you to be successful, and just kind of go with the program, do what they tell you to do, put in max effort. So even though it might seem like repetitive, or it might seem boring sometimes, or they don't necessarily see the purpose, the instructors see the purpose. Because I think what soldiers don't necessarily understand is how successful we want them to be. Nothing gets me more excited and more jacked up than to go down to Ranger School graduation, see a student who came through RTLI, through RTAC, and is standing there and they have a freshly put on Ranger tab. It's awesome. So I think it's a process like anything. And if the students always say, hey, just go through the process, give it 100%, and you're going to be successful.
What are some of the things that you've seen, like traits-wise, whether it's character traits or physical readiness things, that you would recommend, you know, soldiers focus on, either, you know, prior to coming here or while you're at RTLI, that help make them successful?
Okay, I think it all starts with physical fitness.
Okay.
You know, physical fitness is a mindset. It's a standard for yourself. I don't think it's enough to pass the PT test. Passing the PT test is the minimum standard. So if you start with the core of physical fitness, because the Army, or the Ranger School, is the Army's toughest school, and it's going to be a challenge unlike anything that they've ever faced. And it really does start with physical fitness. And I think if you start there, then you have somebody who's kind of hardened their mind a little bit to go through the pain, to get their body in a specific state so that they're going to be ready for those challenges. And then we can teach them the skills. We've had soldiers show up who had really no knowledge of how to do land nav, and we've been able to instruct them and coach them and mentor them, and they've been able to go get 5 out of 5 points.
Wow.
But if you show up and you can only do 20 push-ups in 2 minutes, it's really hard to coach you to the right standard, because you've kind of already shown you don't have what it takes to be here. So I think the core of it is physical fitness, and then ultimately just a willingness to listen. I think one great quality that I've noticed in my time here at RTLI is that the students are hungry. They're like sponges, right? They just want to feed and feed and feed, because one day they want a sweatshirt like this. They want one so bad, and we want to do that. So I feel like it starts with PT, and then a willingness to listen and 100% effort. And when it's freezing cold outside and it's raining, you're still ready to go.
So I was going to say, you know, on that point, right, like, you know, what are some of the developmental things that you notice? You mentioned the soldiers are really hungry. They come here. I'm supposing they have to be if they're, you know, near the top of their OSIC classes.
That's right.
But, you know, I feel like I've seen both sides of it, right? Like I've seen, you know, I had a good friend of mine in a bullet class, extraordinarily physically fit, right? Went to Ranger School though, without food or sleep, and just a whole different person, right?
Sure.
You know, is there anything that you guys do here during RTLI to help prepare the students for like some of those, like, I guess, continuing to overcome adversity?
So So the students get 3 meals a day, and
Yeah.
they get plenty of sleep here, right? So we don't necessarily replicate that as they do in Ranger School, but a lot of the land nav days we get going early. So we leave camp at 4 o'clock in the morning sometimes, or 3:30 in the morning. So and that kind of goes on for a while in terms of land nav, in terms of PT. We're rucking early, we're getting after it early, and it's repetitive. So from that perspective, the op tempo is pretty decent. I think it's almost impossible to recreate Ranger School here.
Yeah, when you probably won't want to break the students down either.
That's right, that's right. And I think that's a good point, because what we're trying to do here is really build those students up. So for example, they may get here and they may not be in the physical shape that's needed for Ranger School, but they're in good shape. So not only are we doing morning PT training throughout the day, but then we're gonna go hit the gym in the afternoon. So we really are trying to get the kids physically strong and mentally tough. And I think that day in and day out, when they're here on camp, when they're just consistently sounding off with Ranger, and they see, you know, just a sweatshirt or other guys walking around the tab, it just provides that motivation. But they do eat well while they're here.
What's one of the most memorable things or engagements you've had with students since you've been here as an instructor?
So I think being an instructor here is an awesome opportunity, because ultimately soldiers are people first and they're soldiers second. And I love to just interact with them and learn about, hey, what's going on in your life? So not only do I have the opportunity to show them how to find a point in the middle of the woods in the middle of the night, but I can say, hey, what's going on with your family? What's going on with your finances? What's going on with other things? And we can have those kind of more heart-to-heart conversations, realizing that, hey, there's a professional line there that we don't cross. But those have been some of my most memorable experiences. And then I guess obviously the best ones are when you go pick them up from Ranger School.
Yeah.
When they're in the van with you and they smell bad and they just look terrible, but their smile is just ear to ear.
I remember, I remember that time.
Yeah, everyone does.
So you talked about bringing the students back here. Have you kept up with any of the Ranger qualified graduates now that went back to their units and seen like what the impact had on that units as far as developing the next generation of leaders?
So I haven't personally done that. I would say though that we have had a recent graduate who went back to his unit, and then he ended up coming back here to work, and now is a Ranger instructor at RTAC right now.
Oh wow.
So now he's going to have this huge impact on all these Ranger qualified leaders that then go back to their units. So there are job opportunities here for Ranger qualified soldiers that, hey, you go graduate, and then you may say, hey, you know what, I really want to come back here and work. Those opportunities exist, and then he can mentor the next generation of leaders, like you mentioned.
I guess, based on, you know, seeing that substantial impact that some of these graduates are able to have on their units directly, you know, you mentioned earlier this is one of the only places that you can go directly through, you know, to Ranger School from off the streets as a brand new soldier.
Definitely.
You know, what has that been looking like with your transition from the train up in RTLI to your success at RTAC at the next phase?
Okay, so the soldiers that come through here that graduate RTLI, they have about well over 90% graduation rate at RTAC. And they have a pretty good graduation rate at Ranger School, just like the rest of the force.
Yeah.
I think graduation rate at Ranger School is only 40%.
Yep.
So the soldiers that come through RTLI and come through RTAC have a much better chance of graduating Ranger School, simply because we have great relationships at Ranger School. So on a weekly basis, we're talking to them, hey, have things changed, have things updated, and we make sure that our soldiers that come through these two programs here are ready to go, so that when they get there, they have the best chance of being successful.
Well, and I feel like you have the added bonus of, like, you know, a lot of these soldiers probably wouldn't have had the opportunity anyway. You know, their units might not have been able to afford them the slots, like whatever the case may be on the front end. So it's, to me, it's like super unique guard program.
It's an enormous opportunity for a young soldier, because what normally happens to folks in the Guard, they go back to their state, they'll probably get out of shape, they'll get into, whether it's school or they get into their job, and then all of a sudden it's 2, 4, 5, 10 years, and that opportunity passes by and it never comes back again.
Yep.
So I think when your body's young, it can take the kind of intensity that we, RTAC, and then ultimately Ranger School is going to put on it. It's the best opportunity. So if a soldier is willing to just make themselves a physical beast, you know, at OSIT, come here and get stronger and smarter and leaner and faster, then we can really put them through the pipeline and really set them up for success to ultimately earn that Ranger tab. And then go back to their unit, impart that wisdom on younger soldiers. And then if the nation so deems, then if we have to go fight, then you have more Ranger qualified leaders on the battlefield.
thanks so much, sir, for coming on to the program and sharing a little bit about RTLI and many of the great benefits.
Well, it's been a pleasure. I really appreciate you inviting me, giving an opportunity for soldiers across the force to come see what we're doing, and then hopefully for prospective soldiers that may want to join the Guard, see an opportunity that maybe they didn't even know existed.
Yeah, did you have any final thoughts for those prospective soldiers out there?
I do. I would say if you're sitting at home right now and you're thinking about joining the National Guard and you're thinking about becoming an Army Ranger, this is the place to do it. It's the only place you can go straight from basic training and go through a Ranger pipeline. So if you have that as a dream, I'd encourage you to come get it.
Thank you for tuning in to Leaders Recon. If you would like more information on any of the topics we discussed today, please visit our social media pages in the links below, or visit our website at www.nationalguard.mil/leaderdevelopment. If you liked this episode, please don't forget to subscribe below and leave us a 5-star review. You can find us wherever you listen to your favorite podcast.